In this video, we are going to be taking a look at the recently released PreSonus Eris Pro 4's. Okay, so as you can see, really nice sturdy looking speaker. We have some basic hardware mounting options for if you're working with these in an immersive setup. And this is being done by, I think it's Triad Orbit. Those should be available soon. But in terms of the design, let's take a quick look at these. So we have a single point source. So everything is coming from this one single source. Now, the first time that I ever used this was with the big brother of the speaker, which is the 6.5s. And I gotta admit, the sound stage and the placement of the imaging and everything like that sounded really, really good to me. So no complaints there. And of course, this carried through to these 4's when I got these as well. I have a basic little light indicator over here. When these are in standby mode, this is kind of like a dim whitish gray color, and then when they're active, it will automatically illuminate in blue. Similar blue to what we're used to, just not as bright or as intense. Also on that note, we don't have any blue lights on this. This is just now a black and silver, kind of like a sticker or a plate of some sort. Let's take a quick look at the back of these speakers, and we have some basic acoustic controls. So we have obviously our gain, which we can set our gain. We have a standby mode. We have a mid ±6 at 1K, high ±6 at 10K. And then we have some low cut options. We have some acoustic space options, which we'll talk about. And then we have different input options. So balanced and unbalanced. Balanced we have over TRS or XLR connection. Okay. So in terms of build quality, these feel really good, really sturdy. They're coming in at just under 10 pounds. We'll go over the dimensions in a moment. So let me put this down and let's now hop over to the computer screen for a moment. If we take a look at these, we covered the single point source coaxial design. What I want to talk about specifically is the frequency response and the max SPL. In my experience with kind of like smaller speakers or entry-level like budget equipment, these two don't always play nice together. What do I mean by this is that, let's say we're talking about 50 hertz to 20K. It might be the case that at lower SPL levels, you do get that, but the minute you start to turn them up and open them up a bit, let's say in a bigger room, or if you're sitting a little bit further back, that you're gonna have a situation where they start to clip and distort, or you're gonna get something like port noise or things like that. In my experience, these do very well with maintaining that frequency response, even at high SPL levels. I had these pretty much wide open with an Apogee boom set up just in a basic stereo placement with some EDM music and pop music, a playlist that I put together. And I was hitting SPL levels that were in the 90s. And I didn't hear any port noise, and I definitely didn't see any clip indicators or anything like that. So I was very pleased with how well they preserve that frequency response at higher SPL levels, because this is something that generally smaller speakers don't do well. Now, we talked about all of the different options that we have in terms of acoustic treatment. This is going to be very much dependent on the room that you're working in, whether you want to do this by ear or whether you want to buy a calibration microphone of some sort and do a quick measurement where you have an average frequency response, and then you make the adjustments and then remeasure until you get everything sounding the way you want. But either way, you have lots of different options to do that. In terms of some of the other measurements, so like I said, we're coming in at 9.5 pounds. Well, our width is 7.5 inches, height 9 inches, depth 8.6 inches. They're pretty decent size. They could fit in small rooms or even like mid-level rooms, and they actually do have, like I said, quite a bit of SPL. I guess I should give some disclosure here. I ordered these to be the ceiling speakers in my 7.1.4 setup. So my initial thought was that I wasn't really even thinking of them in stereo. But like I said, the hardware mounting options are not available yet. So as soon as these came in, I wanted to see how they sounded against the 6.5s. So basically I have two different scenarios. Since I had 4 speakers in total, I set them up as 2 stereo pairs. One on a sidewall with just left and right speaker, and then the other, I actually set it up on the front wall of my Dolby Atmos mix room. So I have my left, my center, and my right. I basically set them up in between the center speaker as an alternate pair. And with that, I actually set them up to be integrated with the LFE, so I could test them out in a 2.1 setup. So if we take a look at the cost here, we got $299 per speaker. Then we have a bundle, which is the new Eris Pro Sub 10. So this is the configuration that I tested. I'm going to temporarily hop over to a software application. So this is the sidewall measurement that I took using SonarWorks. And as you can see, the mid-range, with everything set at its default position, the mid-range is actually incredibly accurate. And they pretty much extend down to where they say they're going to extend. And then from there, after a little bit of calibration, which is actually not that much, I was left with a really nice imaging and a really accurate frequency response of all of the stuff that really matters in terms of dialing something in the mix. Now, with respect to the lack of like the low-end sub information, if you have a set of headphones that you really know well, I would argue that you could get away with a stereo pair of these, set up to the best of your ability with either the onboard acoustic profile tuning adjustments, or if you have something like SonarWorks, you could use that, or in the best world, you would use a combination of both. You would have a really awesome situation where you could dial in the sub-low end on headphones and then have a set of speakers that come in at a really decent budget that you can trust. But the other option, and probably the option that I would go with, is to set up a sub and have the left and right. So in this case, I actually have the ability to set up a 2.1, and then I can do some software control in terms of bass management and everything. So that's what I've done here. And in this case, if we take a look at this profile, this is on the actual front wall. Now let's bring this down to just, we'll kill the right, so we're just looking at one speaker. In this case, it's still pretty accurate across the mid-range. We have a couple dips here, right over here, and then we have quite a big bump. Arguably, what I could have done in this situation is I could have dialed back the acoustic space to maybe like -2, and that maybe would have taken care of some of this buildup over here. But even as it is right now, it's not too bad. So with the software calibration correction that we had over here, now we're looking at flattening these out. Now, when we add the sub into the equation, I love this plugin, Ground Control Sphere, because it allows you to do the bass management in the software domain, and you can actually adjust the volume levels without having to go to the pots in the back of the speakers. I was able to dial this in, and I have to say that the Eris Pro 4's with the PreSonus Pro Sub 10, they sounded amazing. I mix in this main setup over here, I mix with a set of IK multimedia speakers and an Atom Sub 8, and I mix in a 2.1 setup, so I mix with the sub. I'm very used to hearing this setup, and my mixes translate very well, but I actually much preferred the Eris Pro 4's with the Eris Pro Sub 10 set up in this configuration. And like I said, I can't really give you anything in terms of recording something and letting you hear it. All I can really do is just show how this looks, and in terms of the profile correction and the subtle corrections that are being done with SonarWorks, but I really, really liked this setup. And like I said, if you combine having the speakers with a sub, or just the speakers with a set of headphones, I think you can get really, really accurate mixes. And in terms of translation, you'd be really, really good. Now, there is one thing, there's one area, and really, to be honest with you, it is only one thing that I noticed, and it is for me personally, if you're working super, super close to these, that there is a little bit more of noise, self-noise of the speakers at Unity than I would like to hear. So what do I think of these? In closing, I think for anybody who's looking for a budget pair of monitors that have a really nice soundstage and a really detailed and accurate mid-range that is not fatiguing, I think it's an amazing option. I also think if you just want to mix with a set of monitors to give you accurate mid-range, and you're going to dial in your bass and low end on headphones, that you'll be extremely happy with this. And then in my situation, I really like the sub. If you pair this with any decent sub, and that's just, straight out of your interface into the sub, out of the sub, into the back of these speakers, and you get that dialed in, then you have a set of speakers that you can use in a small to moderate sized room that would allow you to work across multiple different genres and have pretty damn accurate frequency response right across the board. So I'm really happy with these in the stereo environment. I can't wait to place them in the immersive context as my height speakers as soon as the mounting hardware comes in. But I just wanted to do this video in case anybody was interested in what these sound like or how they are. 2 thumbs up from me. I couldn't be happier with them at $2.99 a piece. It's a bargain. Anyways, that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to do more content like this in the future. We'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.